Can AI models form strategies and did they play the game differently based on those strategies? This is what researchers wanted to find out in a massive new study where they had AI systems from OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and Anthropic compete in 140,000 classic prisoner's dilemma games. So, this game where you have to basically decide, do you go for a mutually agreeable solution or do you try to go for the best solution for yourself? The idea is really simple. It was to see how the models reason, strategize, and respond when faced with these trade offs between cooperation or betrayal.
This is one of those great strategy games because there's only one answer in a single round. But then as soon as you go to multiple rounds and your behavior influences your competitor, your partner, however you want to think of it, its behavior, optimal strategy changes a lot. What did they find? How did the AIs play Prisoner's Dilemma differently? It's a classic game.
So each AI had to choose whether to cooperate or defect, just like in the original game theory scenario. But the twist was that before making each move, the model had to write out its reasoning in plain English. So it had to tell you why it was going to do what it was going to do. And that actually gave researchers insight into how the model was evaluating its decision making, how it was evaluating its opponent, how it was anticipating future moves and adopting based on past moves. And so we really got a big lens into that black box we talked about of how the thinking was occurring.
Interesting. So how do these models do? They got multiple models they tested. Like, what did they find?
Well, interestingly, we've talked before about different models having different personalities, and we saw different models having different personalities here in terms of how they behaved in the game. So even though they were all trained on sort of roughly the same data set, the Google models, Gemini, was ruthlessly pragmatic, switching strategies to maximize points and exploit weaknesses in its competitor. OpenAI was a little bit more cooperative, even when it knew that it might be exploited. So it was looking for more of sort of a collaborative approach. And Anthropic was forgiving. So even after it had been betrayed by an opponent, it would still trust that opponent in future rounds with the same matchup. So the team mapped what they called strategic fingerprints, which was basically like the behavioral signals or signatures that show how each model was reacting to things like being double crossed or wanting to dominate an opponent. And the differences weren't just statistical noise, they were really distinct, consistent patterns of strategic reasoning that were different for each model.
This is so funny because it feels like the culture of each of those organizations came through in their model, even though they're kind of trained on, I think, roughly speaking, the same sets of data, right? We think kind of the whole internet, but like Google, ruthlessly pragmatic, OpenAI, a little more collaborative, kind of research lab model, kind of, and then Anthropic, the kind of like nonprofit out there to save humanity, like forgives all, just plays the game for the betterment of humanity. Like it feels like those cultures came through in a way that I don't even understand how it happened, but it's really fascinating how those results came out because they do seem to match the personalities of the organizations that they produce them.
It is really interesting. And I think that that's like a really important thing for people thinking about agentic behaviors in their customer facing. Like we've talked about Klarna and we talked about Verizon. Right? Does your AI that you're using reflect your cultural values and your consumer brand? It's not the old sort of chatbot days where you're going to get a robotic outcome. You're going to get something that feels like it has a personality. And does that personality reflect what you want it to reflect? Is a question that I don't know if enough people are really grappling with and thinking about, but I think that they should be.
Well, and it's fascinating because you see these models. We talked earlier about the benchmarks in Grok 4 and Grok 4 Heavy and the performance on whatever Arc AGI or Humanity's Last Game, whatever. Like those are very different questions, and it's not clear that for many use cases the difference between here and here on that graph matters to your performance. But the personality may be, particularly for customer facing, maybe way more important in some ways than the capabilities of the model on some reasoning tasks. At which they're probably, if you're talking about resetting passwords and doing basic customer support, like they can all do that just fine. And so this becomes maybe we need a different kind of benchmark for personalities and strategies and approaches that you can start to differentiate for different use cases, which of these models might fit your persona better, even if another one is quote unquote smarter.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting. Well, it's definitely something that I think people should be testing into and experimenting with different types of providers as they're thinking about how they're going to roll these out in their businesses.
Makes me want to go like fine tune some models and play Prisoner's Dilemma and see what kind of logic I get out of them. It seems like a pretty easy test to run, actually. So I'm kind of might have to do that.
I have a feeling that's your weekend plans.
What's that? My weekend? Yeah, my weekend now coding Prisoner's Dilemma on ChatGPT and Gemini and see what I can fine tune it to do.
That's right.